Alright, I thought I'd give a little demonstration of the total external static pressure readings for a gas furnace here at my furnace now, and thought I'd take you through and show you the process. Alright, first step, you're going to want to get the model number of the appliance you're working on so you can look up the documentation and find the blower chart for the unit. I've already got it downloaded here on my computer so we can see where this 060 unit here, so these are our measurements. Next, we're going to confirm what speed we're on. So, our speed taps, our cool setting are these pins. We've got low. My jumper is on medium low, then medium high, and then high. You also have to look at the adjust jumper up here, which is a little bit hard to see in this scenario, but it's set on tap B. So looking at the blower chart here, we've got medium, low, and B, which is 890 CFM setting. It's also important while you're looking at the documents to read the fine print at the bottom. This is where it's going to tell you whether a filter is included in your measurements, or for example on this unit from 0.06 to 1 inch static pressure, CFM is reduced by 2% per 1 inch increase in static. So very important to look at the documents and read all the fine print involved. Next, so I don't have to wait on a time delay, I went ahead and jumped out green and red and Y1/Y2 so that we know we're going on high speed and we don't have to wait on a time delay. Also wanted to mention real quick, when I jump a unit out, I like to disconnect the red wire from the thermostat, so I'm not going to mess anything up potentially. And the thermostat will be out of the circuit. Alright, so sorry it's a little bit of a mess in here, but my setup, as you can see, I don't have a transition between the filter rack. This is pretty typical in a gas furnace installation. If I did have a transition here, that would be the best place to put it, my probe for the return. I do have a hole down in my blower door from previous tests I've taken, but I'll show you what I typically do in the field as long as I have access. I like to put a hole in the back of the furnace so I don't have to drill the door. I've also got a hole up here in my supply. I have a transition between my furnace and my A coil. That is also the preferred place to take your supply reading. However, often not there in the field, so I'll also go through where I like to put the hole for my supply static in the field. Alright, so we want to get a hole far enough away from the filter cabinet, but not where the blower is. So I go an inch or two, and I typically go about center of your filter opening. want to insert the tip in the direction the airflow is. Alright, so on the supply side of things, oftentimes in this back corner on some models they put a L bracket. So I prefer to put my hole up towards the front of where your heat exchanger plate would be. So if we look inside of here, we have a little bit of a distance to get back in here. You want to just make sure that you're behind that when you're drilling your hole. So I'll go ahead. If you can also, I'll point out, it's hard to tell on the video, but you'll see this screw here, and there's also a screw up above it. That's where that plate is inside of there. So if you go an inch or two back this way, you should be in a good location. So we want this hole to be pretty close to the outlet of the furnace. Remember, we're trying to get the static difference across the appliance we're working on. So similarly as the return, you want to stick the tip in the direction the airflow is going. I find it doesn't matter often if it's in the opposite direction either, but it just depends. So there we got our supply location. Next, I've already got my 510 connected here. Gonna have to zero it out. So we got her zeroed. So your return connection goes on, you'll see there's a positive and negative. We put our return on the negative. And we'll see we've got a 0.4 just on the return side. Next, we take our positive probe, put it on the positive side. A little bit tough to do one-handed. My probe fell out a little bit. So that gives me a total external static of 0.63, 0.64. If we want to know what our supply is by itself, we can just take the negative off, or obviously subtract 0.4 from 0.24. So on my system, you can see that my biggest room for improvement to get it down to 0.5 where it should be is on my return side. So it's also important to plug your holes when you're done. This is my kit I have set up that I use for all my static and temperature measurements. I've got some 1/2-inch plugs. Personally, I like the flush mount plugs. I carry some 3/8 plugs. I also have some 3/8 metal for combustion testing. They're in a different location. Then I also have these 1-inch duct plugs. These are often used by duct cleaning industry. I got a bunch of them for pretty cheap. I forget where. Rest of them come from TruTech Tools. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.